Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a couple of interesting developments, especially in relation to Iran, the statements that are coming from Donald Trump, the threats that are coming from the Trump administration to attack Iran, and the responses that are coming from Iran uh, as a follow up. Then we're going to talk about also the prospect of a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu having more conditions now. He has new conditions to get to a ceasefire. But we're also going to talk about what Israel is doing now inside of the Gaza Strip. But before all of that, uh, in Israel now, the media is more at liberty to start criticizing more. You see, in the early days of the genocide, it was more difficult to criticize what Israel is doing, and now things are getting quite easier, especially in relation to the IDF conduct inside of the Gaza Strip. Now, the IDF and Israel, they always used to tell us that, well, the Palestinians, they use the civilians as human shields. Something very common. Hamas uses people as human shields. And, we have to target hospitals. We have to target bakeries. We have to target healthcare facilities, schools, infants. We have to target everything because Hamas uses them as human shields. But now it appears to be that Israel not only has human shields and uses human shields inside of Gaza, Israel has an army of human shields. So we had this report in the Israeli Haaretz saying that in Gaza, almost every IDF platoon keeps a human shield, a sub army of Palestinian slaves. And according to that article, in every single day, Israel uses at least 6 human shields on average. Now, there were many photos and videos published. As a matter of fact, some of the Israeli army terrorists, they actually proudly, publish some of these videos and images of them using people as human shields, whether elderly women, men, blindfolded, put on top of a vehicle. And that's not only in Gaza, that's also in the West Bank. And this is coming at a time where things are getting more and more tense. In the past several days, we've been talking about the internal criticism coming from Israel, from families of those Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to send to Gaza reservists, criticizing the government heavily. And of course, the level of refusal is on the rise in Israel. This is coming simultaneously with reports like this. And what people need to understand is, in Israel, we still have emergency laws. We still have Israel in a state of emergency. Therefore, Israel can do, well, almost whatever it wants to stop anyone from talking. And stuff like that were considered to be things that you'd be sent to prison for in Israel if we spoke about the beginning of the war. But now it's becoming more common, and people are more at liberty to speak about this. It's showing you how long this has stretched. And even with the level of censorship that's happening inside of Israel, things like that are reaching the mainstream and are being spoken about. These things are very important, and this is a very important development. Moving on to Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu, he is, of course, constantly delaying the ceasefire. He broke the ceasefire. He signed a ceasefire agreement and he later broke it, not for the first time, of course. And now we have the proposal that's coming from Egypt. Yesterday and the day before, I spoke about the details of this proposal. Egypt trying to have a bridge between this phase and phase two, letting Hamas release 5 Israeli prisoners of war, including the American Israeli. So Hamas said, fine. The United States, according to reports, okay. Israel submitting a counteroffer. What is this counteroffer? Benjamin Netanyahu is now saying, if we want to reach a total ceasefire in Gaza, Hamas needs to be disarmed. Gaza, not Hamas. Gaza needs to be disarmed, and all of the Hamas senior figures need to be outside of Gaza. Now, before I start going into the analysis of this and why Benjamin Netanyahu is doing that, the fact of the matter is Benjamin Netanyahu's soul will be out of his body before Gaza disarms. This is a fact. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu needs to know very well. His soul will be outside of his body before Gaza disarms. And that might be also, stretching it slightly. So that's never going to happen. Gaza has always been a hub of resistance against the invaders, historically, and even before the days of the existence of the Israeli entity anyway. But going back to Netanyahu and why he's saying that, okay, well, Benjamin Netanyahu is now trying to, we thought, he was trying to maybe reach something, is getting stuff sorted. Now this statement, if Benjamin Netanyahu is serious about this statement, because there is a reason to believe that he could not be that serious. Previously, he did state certain things, then he went against them. He's unreliable, of course. All of his actions, they constantly breach, but there were things that he said before, and he did a U-turn on them. If he is serious, then we are talking about the absolutely biggest obstacle and a mission impossible. And it would mean, if he is serious about it and will go ahead with this demand of having Gaza disarmed completely and having the Hamas figures being expelled from Gaza, that would be something totally impossible. And he is in fact saying that I'm never going to reach any sort of ceasefire, and any talks that may happen now would only deal with something temporary, not to do with guaranteeing the end of the war. And from the Hamas perspective, they already gave the mediators, and Israel knows that very well, the confirmation that they will not be controlling the Gaza Strip. But Benjamin Netanyahu is now saying, oh no, we decide what we do inside of the Gaza Strip. Hamas said, we are willing to hand in the control of the Gaza Strip to a committee. The committee, this was a proposal that came from Egypt, an independent committee, a non-political committee, not aligned with any political faction in Palestine. Only for 6 months down the line, to have the Palestinian Authority taking control without further elaboration. Hamas, from their side, they said, we're fine to have a committee. We are not people who are looking only to govern. We have a liberation campaign, and we're fine. And as a matter of fact, they gave the Egyptian side and the mediators names as well for people who they think can be good for the role and have no ties with them. And that was accepted by Egypt, and that was also accepted. Reports confirm that was accepted by the United States administration. As a matter of fact, all of the moves of the United States administration, whether it's the Biden administration or the Trump administration, show that they already had this previous acceptance. So what are they going to do with this demand now of Benjamin Netanyahu? Having not only Hamas or any armed resistance group, the whole of Gaza disarmed and the people going out. You're talking about an open war. You're talking about a man who has no intention to end the war whatsoever. And if he's going to go ahead with that, and if he's going to get the backing from the United States administration, accept this to continue as an open war without any return, up until one side is completely defeated. and the killings and all of that to continue. That's if Benjamin Netanyahu continues with his plans and he is getting the backing from the United States administration. Will the United States administration have any sort of move similar to what they had with Steve Witkoff when he was pushing Benjamin Netanyahu to go into a ceasefire deal, applying pressure on him again? The fact that the United States administration did that before, and regardless of all of their talks and their militant talks about a war, which are serious, and we're going to get to their talks about the war with Iran in a second, well, that means they can do it again. They can apply pressure, they can stop it because they did it before. But so long as they're giving a backing for Benjamin Netanyahu, you're talking about a continued escalation, which leads us to the threats. The threats that are coming from Donald Trump and the threats that are coming from the Iranians, on the other hand, in relation to the talks that are happening between the United States and Iran about the nuclear agreement and Donald Trump wanting to go back. Donald Trump made this statement over here saying that, well, if Iran doesn't accept a deal, then we will have bombs. There will be bombing if Iran does not accept a deal. This is the first time that Donald Trump is saying that we will outright go to a war with Iran, or putting that as an option if no agreement is reached. He previously said, well, if we don't reach an agreement with Iran, I guess that's fine too. Now, again, his statements with Iran are becoming more and more militant. This is coming following another report that Donald Trump reportedly told the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi that from the beginning of March, without a specified day in March, we have 2 months. If in these 2 months there is no agreement, then there will be bombs. There will be bombs, meaning, well, they're going to attack Iran. Now, are there any indications that the United States is going to attack Iran? This is the question here. There are many indications that the United States is preparing. Firstly, they are directly linking the attacks of Ansarullah in Yemen to Iran. Donald Trump himself said that Iran is responsible for every fire shot from Yemen, and he is constantly asking Iran to stop supporting Yemen. Iran clarified from their end that our allies or countries or organizations who we have a relation with or who we support have their own independence too, and they can conduct certain operations without our consent, without our consultation, and sometimes without our knowledge. Well, like we have seen in the past 18 months. But clearly, that's not enough for Donald Trump. The United States declared that they will be sending another aircraft carrier to the region with another fleet. There were reports about the United States invading Iranian airspace. Iran took down a surveillance airplane or a drone, UAV, that the United States sent. That was over a month ago. This was heavily underreported, to an extent censored, and the United States did not do anything at the time. There were more reports just from the past few days that the United States is conducting more spy missions against Iran, and we spoke about the GPS jamming in Iran about a week ago, with more suspicious things happening inside of Iran and around Iran. But now Iran is saying, after there are clear indications from the United States that they are preparing for a war, they could, of course, be using all of that as an exercise of muscle flexing to force Iran into an agreement. And that agreement, by the way, is the same agreement that Donald Trump got out of. That agreement has been reached between Iran and the United States following 2 years of talks between one of the previous Iranian governments and the Obama administration at the time. But of course, Israel had its reservations. Obama at the time went ahead even with those Israeli reservations, and he had this deal. This deal lasted only for a couple of years down the line for Donald Trump to come in and completely abolish this agreement. For the sake of who? For the sake of Israel. It wasn't for the sake of the United States. And this is what the American population, especially those who are supporting Donald Trump or support the Republicans, need to understand. This man, so far, he has been showing more interest in Israel rather than the United States. In the United States, his policies are only harming the American citizen and the American consumer, talking about all of these tariffs and all of these trade wars that he's conducting with so many countries close and far. All of that, at the end of the day, affects the average American citizen. That really all they want is to live a normal life, financial stability, security, healthcare. But that's not in the priorities of Donald Trump. And his most blatant statements are coming, well, in relation to Israel, as in, as if the United States is secondary. So if Donald Trump took them out, and now he's trying to go back to that same agreement, by the way, then why did you go out and now you want to go back again? And do you think Iran is what, a toy? Iran is a country that has sovereignty and independence, and they appreciate their time too. At the time when they reached that nuclear agreement with the Obama administration, the Iranians spent 2 years talking with the Americans. 2 years of negotiations is a very long time, and that's something that is energy consuming, time consuming, even financially consuming to conduct negotiations for such a long time, only for the United States to come and breach and end, in essence, this agreement. And now he wants to go back and threatening them with war if they don't go back to that agreement. So, apart from the fact that this could be muscle flexing from the United States administration, it wouldn't be wise to only view it as such if you are Iran. And Iran, indeed, is not viewing this as only, muscle flexing coming from the United States. No, Iran is viewing this as a genuine threat. And now Iran is threatening to bomb an island that belongs to the United Kingdom, actually, but is used by the United States. This island is called the Chagos Island. This island has been under the British rule, in particular the Naval Support Facility Diego Garcia. It's in the Chagos Islands. This island has been in the control of Britain for quite some time, from just following the days of the British Empire. The recent Labour government, they said that they will be returning this island, but nothing has been finalized yet, as in terms of actually handing it back. But Britain obtained it at the time by ethnically cleansing the island. It had 1,500 inhabitants, and they sent them to the slums of Mauritius and other parts too, to take control of this island. And the United States, well, is using this island. And not only are they using this island, they are threatening to use it again. So Iran is now threatening to attack this island directly. Why? Because the United States, they will be using that against Iran, B-52 bombers, and you're talking about lots of risk against Iran, especially with the fact that the United States is using this as a backup to the presence of the United States in the Gulf, because many Gulf states already said, we will not be allowing the United States to use its bases in our region to conduct an attack against Iran. Saudi, Emirates, anyone. So if they are showing some sort of flexibility with Yemen, they outright said no previously to the Biden administration, and that appears to be the case up until now, because they know how vulnerable they are, and they don't want direct trouble with Iran too, no matter how aligned they are with the United States. But there is a problem here. So Iran is threatening to bomb this island, but this island is over 4,000 kilometers away from Iran. This is the area, and this is Iran. So we're talking about over 4,700 kilometers. 4,700 kilometers. How is Iran going to attack this island if their longest range missile is confirmed to be only up to 2,000 kilometers? Well, according to the reports that came from Iran, official state news agencies Iran, they said that the Khorram Shahr missile of Iran, in particular, well, this missile over here, that is the longest range missile. It has the capacity to, we can actually make it reach 4,000 kilometers. And also, we have drones too, and our drones can reach that island, and it can attack the United States. What do we understand from this? Well, that Iran is hiding some things from people. Iran is not outright publishing everything, and they're only publishing certain information as and when suitable. And now they viewed it as a suitable time to publish that fact that they are able to reach, or they have missiles or attack capabilities capable of reaching over 4,000 kilometers. This is something significant, talking about almost intercontinental ballistic missiles, not just long-range ballistic missiles. We already saw their performance against Israel, but that was half the distance between Iran and Chagos. However, they're saying that now we haven't seen direct evidence, but would Iran want to put itself in a position where it can make a threat, and if something breaks out, they fail miserably? Unlikely. It's unlikely because Iran generally, well, they talk about certain attacks, they talk about their capabilities, and when it comes to the implementation, they prove. So with Israel, they proved their attacks. If something happens against them, and if Donald Trump decides to go ahead and wage a war against Iran, that would be a war primarily for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu. Iran would have to respond and show us their power. How likely is this to happen? Well, the more time goes by, the more it looks like the United States administration, apart from the fact that they have joint interests with Israel, they are more and more bound by this Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu in particular, even more than Israel. It's as if Benjamin Netanyahu has some sort of a hold against Donald Trump and many in the United States administration, or that Israel has that leverage or blackmail or whatever it is. And Benjamin Netanyahu is using that and has already shown the United States administration some cards. Look, he gifted Trump a pager, a golden pager. I mean, apart from the sadism and sickness behind him gifting Donald Trump a pager in reference to the pager attack that made thousands of people blind, including children in Lebanon, and killed children inside of Lebanon in one of Israel's biggest acts of global terrorism. using using products that are used by the mass population against civilians. And again, not enough was spoken about that, by the way. The fact that Israel is using devices used by large portions of people in the world for terror, for purposes of terror and warfare. They're constantly breaching international law, but the fact that people are not talking about it, they're trying to, as if, make it appear to be normal. But he gifted Donald Trump a pager. As a matter of fact, he gifted a few more in the United States pagers. Why would Benjamin Netanyahu gift the United States president a pager? Isn't that a threat? Isn't that a direct threat also from Israel against the United States president? That, well, like we killed these people with a pager, here's your pager too. Apart from the sadism behind it, well, that could be another sign. And the fact that the United States administration let Benjamin Netanyahu get away with so much, and also let him get away with completely demolishing the ceasefire agreement, letting him get away with murder, letting him get away with dragging the whole region into chaos, proves that, well, this administration is capable of also being dragged for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu for a war that the United States has actually no interest in. And when I talk about the United States, I'm talking about the United States as a country. I mean, if there is such a thing, again, that's becoming more a matter of debate now. If the United States is a country, or is it like a clique of corporations / cartels / warlords, a warlord country, a militaristic oligarchy, like I like to call them. And that fact is quite worrying. And that fact shows that there is that prospect. And this is why Iran is having these threats. And these threats are not only coming in the form of, well, we can attack that island too. You're talking about multiple relevant senior figures in Iran talking about having a severe response to the United States in case they go and attack Iran if they do not reach a deal in relation to the nuclear project of Iran. And these were the main things that I wanted to share with you in this live stream. And I will open the space up now for some community participation. And again, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. Thank you to all of our regular viewers, all of the new as well, subscribers and members as well. Verlith, thank you for that. You said, don't think it's Israel versus Iran anymore. It's Israel versus Gulf versus Ja'faris. Have you seen how SHN and MBS would go back and forth? I'm not entirely sure about that reference, but if we do talk about the Israel versus Iran, well, Israel always wanted to drag the United States rather than go against Iran directly. And that's the plan of Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's why now Donald Trump is actually following up on that plan. It's as if he's playing ball with Benjamin Netanyahu. And also Munim Fayers, thank you very much. And also Michael McIntyre. Thank you for that. TMZBGD, why would Iran and Israel try something now when they are the weakest they have ever been? Well, even if we talk about the United States and Israel being the weakest they've ever been, that's still quite a lot of force that they have militarily. So the army of Israel might be totally exhausted. They still have fighter jets and they still have bombs and they still have people willing to conduct attacks. Likewise with the United States. The army is also exhausted. Well, there's so much presence across the world, so many wars. And the tide is turning against them internally too, from veterans, from people who actually serve in the army. We saw many resignations. We saw Aaron Bushnell. We saw many others too. And there is a growing notion and growing understanding inside of the United States that we were fooled. We were manipulated. We were brainwashed and sent to die for corporate purposes, for the military-industrial complex, for the oil companies, and for the people benefiting from these wars. But the fact of the matter is, they still have people who are willing to participate, and they also still have the capacity to conduct attacks. And they still have a military-industrial complex benefiting from all of that. And Glenn Huxley as well, thank you very much. And Amin, Eid Mubarak to you and yours, my friend, as well. Thank you so much for that. Let's go, let me go up slightly to the chat, see if I missed anything quickly. And if anyone has any participation now, if you wouldn't mind highlighting it too, just so that we won't miss anything. Okay. Bujar saying, Mahmoud, the Yemenis have been pounding the USS Harry S. Truman. They have, indeed, they have. And his warships 3-4 times within the last 24 hours, and destroyed carriers, key command control assets, radar aircraft, carriers, bridge. Yes, Yemen have been exceptionally active against the United States-led genocide supporting cartel or genocide cartel to support Israel. And they're saying that their attacks are successful. Usually, when they say their attacks are successful, they would have something to back that. In previous videos, and Yemen is not releasing a lot of videos lately, we have seen that effectiveness and that accuracy of their attacks, especially because of how they attack this aircraft carrier and the fleet that's with it, or the fleet that it's within. A combination of drones, a combination of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles too. And that's why the United States, and I spoke about this about 3 weeks ago, is declaring that they're sending another aircraft carrier. Is the United States hiding the fact that the USS Harry S. Truman been damaged to a level where it needs maintenance, therefore they have to send another aircraft carrier? In the past year and a half, and for a very long time, the United States withdrew one of their aircraft carriers from the South China Sea because of the escalation. Eisenhower, Lincoln, and another one, they had to take them back to American shores for maintenance. And that maintenance usually lasts at least a year. There were reports that many of the staff on those aircraft carriers were totally out of it, as in mentally done and incapable of continuing. The United States tried to use that as an excuse, that people need some rest and what have you. But that also could be due to growing also discontent or disapproval as well from within. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens too. And why are they saying that now, that they're sending another aircraft carrier? Clearly, the attacks of Yemen are effective. They're very effective against the USS Harry S. Truman. And Munim Fayers, you said, thank you, you said the IRGC has prepped its missiles and are ready. They are ready, and they have been ready. They have been ready for a while. And again, another one, I think that one is God is my shepherd. Thank you very much for that. And Gulliberg, you also said, is it likely that Netanyahu will have a preemptive strike against Iran? His dream is what's happening now, by the way. That's his dream almost coming true. The dream of Netanyahu almost coming true is for the United States to have this attack without Israel having any intervention. And that's clearly where Trump is leading things to. Firstly, he's leading these attacks against Yemen. He has been attacking Yemen way more frequently than how Yemen or how often Yemen was attacked under the Biden administration. And that's to satisfy Israel. That's to, show Benjamin Netanyahu, look how much we're attacking Yemen. Are you pleased with us? And I don't think that it's him who will be having this strike. And it wouldn't, by the way, be a preemptive strike. It would be an aggression. It would be an act of aggression, because Iran was the side that was responding, by the way. This all started from Israel. Israel was killing Iranians in Syria. They were attacking so many other countries too. And Iran was simply retaliating. So it would not be an Israeli preemptive strike. Although if you mean as in preemptive strike before Iran retaliates with true promise too, I can understand that. But his hope would be to drag the United States. And judging by the developments that are happening now, it looks like Donald Trump is headed that way, to go to another war for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's the same man who shared a video of Jeffrey Sachs calling Benjamin Netanyahu a deep, dark SOB who dragged the United States into these wars weeks before the Gaza ceasefire. What happened during that time? That's the question. What made Donald Trump shift his position? United States president doesn't share a link with certain comments about an ally, someone who's supposed to be the closest ally, with this level of criticism and this type of language used like that, as a coincidence. Did Israel threaten him with something? Again, Netanyahu handed him a pager. That's the United States president for you. So I think that he would ideally want the United States to do it, and that there is a very big prospect of that happening. And Sarah, you're saying, do you think the United States is pushing the Philippines to fight a proxy war with China so that China will be occupied over there and have less to come the defense of Iran? Well, I think that the United States, not only with the Philippines, but with other countries in the Far East surrounding China, always tries to have these coalitions against China. But listen, there are developments there. So recently there was a meeting between the Chinese, the South Koreans, and the Japanese, countries that usually have hostilities. Usually South Korea and Japan are aligned with the United States. But now they're meeting with China. Are they reaching that level where, we've had enough, that's it, of the United States? We could be in the process of that, because the empires, that's it, it's collapsing slowly but surely. And if the United States tries to engage, for example, the Philippines or any other country with China, that would not affect the Chinese capability of having any sort of engagement in any other front. The recent CIA report in the United States stated clearly that China is the biggest military threat to the United States. What they did not specify is, well, China has been growing its military so much because of constant US hostilities just next to China's door, really. And they know that China is very capable on having multiple fronts. No one should underestimate China. But China is a non-interventionist country. It's not like the United States. And even if we talk about that whole region, well, that whole region, China's closer to all of these countries than the United States is. It's the United States that shouldn't be meddling in those areas. It's the United States that shouldn't be having aircraft carriers in the South China Sea, and then complaining about a Chinese warship coming, flying on top of them. So that's what people should be thinking about, not China and Taiwan. And but what do you mean? It's like the proximity between them, next to the proximity of Taiwan or the Philippines or any other country to the United States. So no, I think that they have the capacity, and also China as well. Don't forget that they will use North Korea too, like North Korea and their dealings with other countries, including with Iran. That's approved by China. Like North Korea, their lifeline is China. So if we see an agreement, for example, between North Korea and Iran or Russia or whatever, we need to understand how big of a role China played. But China tries to always portray itself, or works hard to be perceived as a country that is non-hostile, and they are a non-hostile country. But if they want to send like some threats, they will send that through North Korea. And well, if things escalate, they have the capacity to confront the United States, China. And thank you for that. And Dan Morgan, thank you so much. And Waleed B as well, Eid Mubarak, my friend, thank you so much. And Studio Rainer, you said, so the United States failed with the negotiations with Iran, China, and Russia. Also, Wall Street would be mad knowing that Iran can simply destroy the oil refineries in the Middle East. Global depression would be the result. Yes, and I'm not sure if we can call what the United States does with other countries as negotiations. I'm not entirely sure of that. I think the United States administration likes to talk to itself. And when they go and try and talk with other countries, they come with plans already done because they spoke about it internally. The United States and other countries for that matter too, but primarily the United States, they don't go and speak with other countries, as equals. No, they go and speak with other countries as a supreme, as an authority, as the global police, rather than, I'm going there to actually have a negotiation with you. Because if they were to have a nuclear, if they were to have, a real negotiation, well, they already had negotiations that were successful, right? Didn't they spend 2 years sending their diplomats to Iran? The United States diplomacy is also almost non-existent. There is no diplomacy. There's militancy. Not even militancy. There's terrorism. I mean, that's how you actually translate that. What the United States does. They spent 2 years talking to the Iranians. Okay, these people are supposed to be public servants, people who serve the country, funded by the population. What are you going and talking for 2 years, and all of these planes and hotels and all of that covered and paid for just for the sake of talking, right? So if they actually were genuine and sincere and had an ounce of integrity, they can do a lot and they can spare the world a lot of bloodshed, but they choose not to because they are profiteering from it. And because these people are not there to represent the population, they're using this democracy as a facade. And it's in essence an elected dictatorship. Manipulate the people, show the blue and the red, right? Two options, same backers, fighting for the same money, lobby for the same people, by the way. Money, look at the money behind it. And then they go and do whatever they want to do. And Iran, they have the leverage. They know that. They know that very well. But despite that, they would go ahead and have these escalations. Didn't they cause a lot of risk when they were supporting, for example, The Saudi aggression against Yemen? Well, the Saudi oil fields were being attacked by Yemen. That was a big threat. Didn't the United States know that? They knew it very well. And they knew it very well and still decided to go ahead and continue. And you also said Iran's nuclear deterrence is destroying the oil colonies. It would solve most of Iran's issues if the Gulf didn't have oil. It's underestimated that Iran can end the current global economic order. I think that, oil can be a blessing, but unfortunately, the countries that have this oil, and in particular, if we talk about the Arab states rather than Iran, I believe they have a better political vision than most Arab states. But the Arab states, it's as if they're relying on cash to go in. And yes, there are attempts to diversify their economies and what have you. But it's not really working that much. And there is a slight shift from the US too. And Iran is not interested, by the way, in harming global economy or whatever. Iran is simply a country that wants to deal with the world, but at the same time, it wants to have its own independence and sovereignty. And that's what the others don't want for Iran. That's what the United States doesn't want for Iran. That's what other countries don't want for Iran too. They want Iran to be following their economic order and their political will, their type of diplomacy to deal with them. And Iran told them, no, we're not going to do that. Death dealer. You said, I know that Iran has a defense treaty with Russia. Would Russia come to the defense of sending military or Iran or weapons? Well, outright, it isn't called a defense treaty or a defense pact. It's called a strategic agreement. It's called something like a strategic cooperation agreement between both of them. Now, that agreement includes specific things to do with military and with defense and with security, but it also stretches to economy and education and politics, like similar to the agreement that Iran has with China, by the way. So both of them can be translated as agreements that could potentially include a defense pact, but maybe deliberately not labeled as a defense pact so that, well, their enemies don't really calculate or expect exactly what's going to happen. In reference to the military, well, the Su-35s are already being assembled in Iran. There were reports last week that 6 Su-35s have already been assembled. They have 50 in total. And air defense support, missile technology, all of that, they're in full coordination. And that coordination has been growing. And I don't think even if Trump would be closer to a deal between Russia and Ukraine, and despite his ties with Vladimir Putin and his, well, sometimes almost, adoring like Putin, that Putin will all of a sudden like ditch Iran or anything as such, because some people were saying that they would ditch them. No. I mean, we need to understand that Russia is different to Iran. That's number one. But Russia wouldn't be that quick to like ditch all of its interests with Iran, because they know that Donald Trump is there temporarily. But that's questionable now, because Donald Trump recently said that there's an option for him to go to more terms now. It looks like the man wants to change this 2-term limit in the United States. But Iran knows that too. And a studio also said that Iran is in a better position to end the post-1945 world order than Russia. A global depression would be a result if Iran goes all out. If Iran goes all out, there's going to be global repercussions. Absolutely. because there were global repercussions when Saudi Arabia, under King Faisal at the time, in support for Egypt and its war against Israel, Saudi Arabia had a much better position at that time politically. Well, he had economic damage against the United States as well. Iran knows that they can do that. Iran knows that it can do it too. But again, I think they would prefer peace and talks rather than all of these wars. But these wars, this is what people need to understand, have been imposed on them because of the approach of the United States and its proxies, either in Europe or in other parts too, against Iran, trying to impose their will and their view and their order and their political approach and their financial approach on other countries too. But I don't think it's Iran on its own. I think it's a combination, because if we want to talk about the end of unipolarity and the rise of a multipolar world, that's something that wouldn't just include Iran. And that's something that is a process. It's not something that would happen in one night. I think that the rise of the multipolar world and the collapse of the United States unipolarity is happening, but it's not a process that you see in one day and one night. No, it's a process that takes time. Sometimes it can take decades. So, but we're witnessing that. We're witnessing that by the shift of power, the influence, the increased coordination that's happening between countries that are victims to the United States policies, and the rise of the BRICS too. The fact that these countries are having a back door to sanctions, something that the United States always threatened these countries with. Because think about it for 1 second. They have sanctions against Russia. And by the way, some of these sanctions against Russia is state theft, by the way, because they would literally steal money from people who are Russian just because they say they're linked somehow to the government. Theft being conducted by many Western countries, and also against Iran. Billions were held by the United States that belong to Iran. People need to understand that. And that's, of course, something that they don't tell you on mainstream media. But that rise is going to be not singular, of course. It's going to be joint. And that's why these countries are coordinating more, the victims of the US empire, if we were to describe it as such. And Maximus also, thank you. Maximus said that Netanyahu said today that he will take over Gaza and execute Trump's plan to expel Palestinians. It seems he has the green light to do that. Well, I think it's been evident that Benjamin Netanyahu has the green light from the United States or from the Trump administration, to be more accurate, to do as he desires in Gaza. The big question remains, well, how is he going to implement that? He is trying to implement that by causing as much suffering and misery against the Palestinian population. But guess what? The Palestinian population know that with or without resistance against Israel, that misery and suffering will be forced upon them by Israel anyway. Because we have an example, and that example is called the West Bank. That is what's been happening in the West Bank ever since its occupation in 1967. Expelling, more land grabbing, more expansion, more people being killed, more administrative detention, more expulsion. 50,000 people have been forcibly expelled from their homes in the West Bank. Israel destroys homes every single day in the West Bank. Israelis steal Palestinian homes every day in the West Bank. Kidnap people, execute people in the streets, children, in many cases, women, pregnant women. So they know that very well, the Gazans. And the Gazans know that very well, by the way, because they are a population that is 73% refugees. That's way before the 7th of October, by the way. So let's put the facts straight. Before the 7th of October, Gaza, 73% refugees, over 50% unemployment, most of the homes not safe to live in, 80% of the people, well, they rely on external aid. The majority of the people, they don't know where their next meal is coming from. Plus, 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 plus. Every person has a martyr or injured in his family, his or her family. That's before the 7th of October. So that's why they know Israel very well. And despite Israel continuing its genocide and not adhering to anything to do with international law, well, the population know them. And the fact that the population knows Israel very well means that that plan is going to fail. Because Benjamin Netanyahu cannot implement that plan purely by just going against the civilians, right? He's going to have to deploy, well, bigger numbers than when he deployed before. Because when he deployed 3 divisions inside of Gaza, approximately 75,000 soldiers or ITF terrorists inside of Gaza during the peak of the genocide, they were not able to defeat neither the Palestinian people nor the Palestinian resistance. Is Israel anywhere near, number one, those numbers? Number two, are they capable of having those numbers again inside of the Gaza Strip? The facts tell us no. And the facts tell us that, well, reservists in Israel are refusing. The facts tell us that there will be no forced conscription against the Orthodox community. The facts tell us that thousands, okay, because some people are going to dispute and they're going to start, thousands were killed, tens of thousands wounded, over 100,000 with PTSD. What are they going to do? Some people have been deployed in the same place for over 5 times. What are they going to do? Are they going to go back to Gaza again? They're not going to go back to Gaza again. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration when we listen to Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he wants to implement this Trump plan. Netanyahu or Milikovsky, he is the foreigner. The Israeli occupiers are the foreigners. They are foreign to the land. Donald Trump has nothing to do with Palestine. The Palestinian people, especially the Palestinian population in Gaza, but also all across of historical Palestine, they are the indigenous people. They are the people of the land. And it's proving to be very difficult to try and convince those people to leave despite the destruction, or guess what, even defeat their will to live, survive, and remain in the land, even if it's on the rubble. So I highly doubt any project as such is gonna work. The fact that we're seeing is that, well, millions of Israelis left Israel, didn't they? After the 7th of October. Not millions of Palestinians. Israel has an office for Palestinians to contact and leave Gaza, right? Are people leaving Gaza in their thousands? They're not. So it isn't going to happen. It isn't going to happen. And we need to remember the motives behind Benjamin Netanyahu's actions. The motives behind Benjamin Netanyahu's actions and the motives behind Benjamin Netanyahu's statements too, because Benjamin Netanyahu, like his state, a pathological liar, the motives are very narrow selfish interests, nothing to do with reality. That's why the majority oppose him in his operation or how he's conducting that operation, the genocide or the plans or all of that, including people in the military, including people in the security establishment. In the protests that are in the streets, spoke about them just a week ago. the previous head of the Mossad, the previous head of the Israeli police, previous deputy IDF chiefs of staff, previous defense ministers. These are the people in the streets protesting against Netanyahu because they know what he's saying and what he's doing and what he's planning isn't linked to the reality on the ground. It's linked to his interests to drag the war and buy time so that he can continue with reforms, continue with getting away with corruption charges, continue and remain in his position, potentially get himself somehow into another premier, another time he's going to become a prime minister in Israel, although he's the longest serving prime minister in Israel. So they know that very well. And thank you for that. Let's see if we have... Bon Dewey, Mahmoud, thank you for all the reports. You're welcome. Do you have any opinion about what is happening in Turkey rallies? Are they legit or another West-led color revolution? Well, to be fair, I mean, I haven't looked into it too much to kind of have a fully formed opinion about it. But what I can tell you is based on the information that I saw so far. Based on the information that I saw so far, and it's also very similar to Syria, for example. We base things based on the reports that are coming and what we're seeing on the ground. Based on the reports that are coming from Turkey, the biggest threat to Erdogan was imprisoned. He was imprisoned based on corruption and potential threats to the security of Turkey, with even links to what the Turkish authorities describe as terrorist organizations. Him and others were imprisoned too. This man, the authorities had a problem with him since he became the mayor of Istanbul, and they actually challenged the elections when he was like, because they know usually the man who becomes the mayor of Istanbul has a very big potential of becoming the president of Turkey, like Erdogan or others too. But we haven't heard the proper defense coming from the man himself. So if, say, we have an accusation against someone, we would need to hear the other side. What we are seeing is, well, there are many protests on the ground, of course. Now, are there interests for countries that oppose Turkey to let Turkey have inner tensions? Of course they do. Many countries are concerned with Turkey and their development, their regional power, their regional influence, the changes that they support, regardless of your view on the Turkish government or authorities. But they're concerned of that, their defense, their military, and the fact that they're having ties with countries and working on mutual projects too. They have a problem with that. Now, is everything linked to some foreign intervention? As in, can we always say that it's foreign intervention leading things that are happening inside of the country, whether we like them or not, by the way, whether we like this party or that, or this side or that? So I don't think it's, that appropriate to always say that. I think it's quite, oversimplifying. At the end of the day, there are people in Turkey who oppose Erdogan, and they have their reasons to protest against him. And I think to establish a valid opinion, first, I'm in no rush really to establish opinions, by the way. I'm more interested in like reading and learning about something. But so far I haven't personally, and again, that might be due to my lack of further reading into that, heard what the other side has to say in defense. So if, let's say, they have these big charges against him, and we saw very big protests, we would need to hear the defense. What does the defense have to say? And where is that going to go to? I mean, what we do hope for, though, is that, nothing leads to any negative impact to Turkey as a country, as a whole. Turkey is a very player, regardless of the people who lead it. Because when you look at a country, you don't look at it from a narrow political ideology type of thing. You look at it from the bigger picture. And Turkey is an important country. And if there are certain things that the people are opposing, whatever, there need to be some assurances given to them as well from the state too. Studio, you're saying, oh, you said a couple of things. Sorry, let me just have a look quickly. Paletti, why never hear China and Russia helping Palestine? They have interests in the regions, or two, they just don't care. No, it's not a fact that they don't care, by the way. It's the fact that they choose not to have the same interventionist approach as the United States. And that could have negative meanings. But in terms of their participation, no, it was China and Russia and Brazil, the first countries to call for a ceasefire, that the US rejected, and the UK rejected, and France and Germany and rejected. All of them have blood on their hands. But it was China and Russia, Brazil, who initially called for an immediate ceasefire after the 7th of October. Let's not forget that. China and Russia both had meetings or held meetings internally, invited all of the Palestinian political parties relevant on the scene to unite. And guess what? There were agreements, but those agreements were tampered with by the head of the Palestinian Authority, Abu Mazen, because the PA in the West Bank did not want any sort of unity or understanding. And they are participating. And let's go next one. TMZBGD, how has Russia and China responded in terms of assisting in Iran a potential war, seeing as how China can't let Iran's resources like oil be controlled by an anti-China country? Well, to understand more of that, we need to understand both the relation between Iran and Russia and Iran and China. Masoud Pezeshkian, the Iranian president, he declared earlier on this year that China is the biggest partner, is the most important partner of Iran globally, more than Russia. For him to say that, that must include certain things that Iran already has with Russia too. Iran's relations with Russia have been very evident. Coordination, cooperation, mutual assistance, mutual support, mutual understanding, and to a large extent, mutual language. And that was also interpreted by actions, not just by words, with a declaration of an agreement. Well, again, like I spoke before when in relation to China, China and Iran have a similar cooperation agreement with Iran, similar to what they have with Russia. But China, they are not a country that likes to make a scene out of things, if that makes sense. But they, the enemies of Iran and China know very well that an attack, or to be more accurate, a significant attack that can actually pose a genuine threat to Iran as a whole will not be met with the Chinese lack of action. And when I say an attack that can actually genuinely destabilize Iran, I mean, there might be a US attack and you would see lots of explosions, but Iran would just continue after that too. They'll have a response and they'll continue. To take down Iran as a whole state and you know, government and all of that, that's something that requires a hell of a lot of resources and time and many things. But if China feels that, they're there. China's the biggest consumer of Iranian oil. Iran needs them. China needs them. Because China needs to have a safety net in the form of Iran against US problems or potentially US imposed sanctions too in the future. So I believe that China, both China and Russia, look at it from the bigger picture, as in their active participation if we reach that stage. But really, I mean, if we do reach that stage, then that's World War III at that time. That would be literally World War III happening. And the United States would need to have some sort of a coalition. And Sarah, you were saying if Netanyahu is already moving Palestinians out into Gaza, Palestinians out into Egypt, sorry. No, that's not true. The people who go to Egypt and to other countries too, some of them are, or many of them, if not all of them, are people with severe injuries that need treatment, that require treatment. They might be accompanied by several family members. But ever since Israel had a siege, nothing's been happening. People need to understand, nothing is going into Gaza for the past almost 3 weeks now, or 2 weeks, since Israel restarted the war. And they're using that, causing so much suffering for the people. And when I say they're not allowing anything in, it's not just like food and water. It's also medicine. It's things to do with hospital requirements, with so many injuries in Gaza. It's basic hygiene necessities for infants and vulnerable people. It's everything that you can imagine. Sanitation, all of that. And again, Israel, they get away with that. They get away with it. It's as if, you know, it's happening. It's not that Israel is doing it. But no, and Egypt, by the way, people try and spread lies about Egypt. There was a report just about a week ago. I didn't speak about it because it was a lie and Egypt denied it anyway. But since you're mentioning it, I'll mention it. That Egypt accepted 500,000 Palestinians immediately. It was posted in a Lebanese website / newspaper. Immediately, outright denied it. And the fact on the ground shows that Egypt denied that. I mean, that's something that we have to give to Egypt. Egypt denied that. Egypt also prevented the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, despite getting very, very big offers, lifting off their international debt, plus 120 billion. And Egypt is in a very bad economic situation. So they could do with that. But they didn't go ahead with it. Because they know the following steps. And no, they haven't, and they haven't changed that position as well. Okay, missing a lot of questions here. I think, let's see if we have anything else. We passed an hour. Yeah, I'll finish off with another one from Studio Rainer. Thank you for that, Studio Rainer, saying they tried to get Iran to join the US world order and Kissinger failed. People don't mention that often, but if Kissinger failed, Trump will fail too. They have been trying, absolutely, to get that with Iran for a very long time. But I think the fact that the United States is still trying to impose its ways against Iran shows you that it's not interested in diplomacy whatsoever. It's interested in wreaking havoc. And if Kissinger failed, Trump will fail too. Absolutely. Listen, Trump tries to portray himself as if he's something great. Fact of the matter is, give us some examples of these magnificent things he's done in the United States. Nothing, really. And like I said, he's more interested in Israel than he is in America. Foreign policy, everything with Israel. Apart from that, arrogant trade wars that have absolute, pure negative implications on the American citizen, as in they start to suffer financially from them. And, you know, I really don't know how Trump supporters justify that. Like, do you know what I mean? Firstly, a man going against everything that he said. He wants to be the peacemaker. Didn't he say that he's going to end the wars in one day? First day I'm in the office, I'm going to end the Ukraine war. First day I'm going to finish the wars in the Middle East and whatever. And then apart from that, all of the financial trouble and tensions that he's getting the Americans into for his own insanities. Absolutely. And we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. And thank you for, and apologies, by the way, if I haven't reached all of the comments, just for the limit of time and the level of participation too. But thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who sent supers as well. Studio Rainer, Marvin, Maximus, Josh, 1341, Tristan, and Walid B and Dan Morgan. God is my shepherd. Munim, Khalid Razak as well. And Eid Mubarak to you, my friend, and everyone else. And I'm sorry I missed some of these comments, by the way. And Preston and Amin, Glenn and Verlith and Michael McIntyre. And everyone else, thank you so much for your participation. And thank you for all of the viewers as well. In the meantime, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay blessed, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.